Charlie was starting to get annoyed. He was only here as a favor to Warnia. Otherwise, as the young master of the Wade family, his status was far above the Smith family. What right did they have to summon him? Warnia was angry too. Honor. You can choose not to believe in certain things, but you have no right to disrespect them. Honor snorts coldly. Respect? I only respect masters with real talent and knowledge. As for con artists, they don't deserve my respect. With that, he gestured to the old man beside him and said proudly, "This is Tristan Finch and his granddaughter Fiona, the most renowned doctor in Oris Hill." Charlie looked up and was taken aback. The pair, one old and one young, looked like a grandfather and granddaughter, but their clothes were clearly different from everyone else's. The old man was over 60, wearing a simple linen tunic, a pair of old-fashioned, black-framed reading glasses, and he had a long white beard. His eyes were sharp and bright. The girl standing next to him, about 18 or 19 years old, was wearing a modest uniform with a short haircut and bangs. She had bright eyes and a brilliant smile, and she carried a cool, classic air about her. But it was the girl's appearance that really caught Charlie's attention. In all of Oris Hill City, her beauty was on par with Claire's, who was known as the First Beauty, and he hadn't seen many who could compare. But unlike Claire, this girl's gaze was sharper, and she had an air of arrogance about her. She didn't seem very approachable. When she saw Charlie looking her way, Tristan Finch gave a faint nod, but the girl remained cold and didn't even glance at him. Honor turned back to Warnia. "Sister, the person you brought is barely in his 20s. He probably hasn't even memorized the basics of cosmic balance and the 4 elements, and he's calling himself a master. People would laugh at our Smith family for being so gullible, trusting in superstitions instead of medical skills." The barb was clearly aimed at Charlie. He was shocked. How did he suddenly become a liar? At that moment, Honor addressed the old man again, bowing slightly. "Mr. Finch, my sister is just being naive and jumping to conclusions. Please don't take it personally." Tristan replied modestly, "Youth doesn't necessarily mean a lack of talent. Mr. Smith, you shouldn't be so quick to doubt this young man." Honor sighed. "You don't know the half of it, Mr. Finch. My sister is always falling for scams when she's desperate. She gets deceived all the time." Warnia's face darkened. "Honor? What's that supposed to mean?" Honor shot back. "Am I wrong? I heard you got played by some so-called energy consultant from San Francisco not too long ago. Have you already forgotten about that?" "You!" Warnia sputtered, her face flushed with embarrassment. The whole incident with Everett Sutton had been a huge mistake on her part. She never expected to be fooled by a con artist. Luckily, Charlie had been there to see through the scam. Otherwise, she would have been in serious trouble. However, Honor obviously didn't know about Charlie's abilities, so he had no problem running his mouth. He turned to Charlie again. "I don't know how you tricked Warnia, but I'm not about to let you pull one over on the Smith family. This is Mr. Finch. His family has served as presidential physicians for 3 generations. You're just a young liar. I suggest you get out of here now, before you find yourself in trouble." Warnia's face was beet red, but she couldn't find a good comeback. After all, Charlie really did look too young. His age alone was unconvincing. If she hadn't seen Charlie's incredible abilities with her own eyes, she wouldn't have believed it either. To her surprise, Charlie remained completely calm. He just smiled and said, "It's fine. Nobody like me is just here to watch and learn. I would never get in the way of this master physician while he's trying to heal someone." "Good. At least you know your place." Just then, a middle-aged man rushed out of the house. "Warnia! Honor! Your grandfather is about to pass away!" Tristan quickly asked, "Where is Cedric Smith? Let me see him immediately." "He's in the back wing of the house. Please, follow me," Honor said, quickly leading the way for the doctor and his granddaughter. Warnia quickly pulled Charlie along to follow. When they entered a lavish, classic-style room in the back wing, they saw a dying old man lying on a large bed made of gold and oak. The old man's face was gaunt. His skin had a pale, waxy sheen, and his brows were knitted together as if he were enduring immense pain. Tristan said at once, "Mr. Smith is in critical condition. Please allow my granddaughter and me to begin treatment immediately." Honor hurriedly said, "Mr. Finch, please, do whatever you can." Tristan nodded, but he didn't perform the treatment himself. Instead, he stood by the bed and gestured for the young woman to begin. A silver needle lay on the bedside table. The woman picked it up and began to expertly pierce Cedric's skin. Her acupressure technique was incredibly skillful, even more so than a holistic medicine expert who'd been practicing for 20 or 30 years. It was no wonder that, despite her youth, the Smith family members were confident in her abilities. The young woman was undeniably attractive. She wasn't just beautiful and charming. She also had a look of confident strength in her eyes. Her appearance and her presence were both top-notch. But Charlie wasn't focused on her beauty. He was looking deeper, at her inner self. He could see that when she placed the needles, she was channeling a small amount of core energy. That made her, in a way, a fellow practitioner. According to the principles of ancient mysticism, there are 5 major disciplines. To practice any of them, one needed to cultivate core energy, which was the foundation of true mastery. Charlie could tell at a glance that Tristan Finch and his granddaughter belonged to the discipline of the mountain. The biorhythmic pulse discipline is based primarily on medical skills, starting with medicine, then learning martial arts, and finally mastering pressure point combat. But even if Tristan and Fiona were fellow practitioners, they were still just mortals. And all mortals could only channel a limited amount of core energy. But Charlie had already been reborn by spiritual energy, and his body was now far beyond what a normal person could be. The core energy cultivated through the 5 elemental arts might sound similar to the spiritual energy in Charlie's body, but they were as different as night and day. It was a complete and total distinction. To put it simply, it was the difference between coal and diamonds. Even though they both come from the same source, coal is just a raw material with limited energy and a low price. Diamonds, on the other hand, are the refined essence, holding immense energy, incredibly hard, and worth thousands of times more. Many practitioners of the energy channels trained their entire lives hoping to cultivate even a tiny trace of aura, because once someone has an aura, even a small amount can dramatically increase their power level and extend their life. However, 99% of the disciples of the energy channels could train their whole lives and never managed to cultivate even a hint of spiritual energy before they died. "Thank you both for your hard work," the middle-aged man from the Smith family said gratefully. At his signal, his nephew Honor quickly brought over a cup of artisanal tea and offered it to them. The young woman quickly set down the silver needle. She was breathing heavily as she took the teacup and drank it down. Even though she was only about a third of the way through the acupuncture treatment, Cedric's face had already regained some color, and his breathing had become more even. The Smith family members gathered around them looked both joyful and impressed. The woman looked pretty pleased with herself. After drinking the herbal tea, she shot Charlie a smug look, as if to say, "See? Look how good I am." Charlie didn't say a word, his face completely blank. Actually, if she had better control of her core energy and applied it properly, she wouldn't have had to use so much of it, and she wouldn't be so exhausted. But Charlie couldn't offer any advice. He didn't want to get tangled up with this spitfire. Charlie turned and looked at Cedric Smith's condition, his brow furrowed. After the woman's acupuncture, Cedric's condition had improved, but it was only on the surface. Cedric had old injuries deep in his body. His muscles and veins were damaged, his circulation was poor, and several of his organs were already starting to fail. The woman's treatment just now only addressed the symptoms, not the root cause. On the surface, Cedric's complexion looked healthy, but in reality, she had only suppressed the underlying damage. In 2 days, he would relapse. The illness would come back with a vengeance, the symptoms would be much worse, and it would be fatal. This so-called genius doctor had only bought him 2 or 3 more days of life. Seeing this, Charlie made a decision. He stepped up to the bed, picked up the silver needle from the table, and said calmly, "The old man still has a hidden injury. Let me place a needle." When the middle-aged man from the Smith family saw Charlie about to perform acupuncture, he looked shocked and moved to stop him. But when he saw how skilled Charlie's movements were, he paused, frowning in confusion. Honor, however, exploded with anger. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" he yelled. Charlie replied calmly, "Mr. Smith has an old injury. I'm going to repair his muscles and veins and restore his internal organs. Otherwise, he won't live for 3 days." "What are you talking about?" Honor was furious. "You're cursing my grandfather. I'll kill you." Warnia quickly stepped in front of him. "Brother, let Mr. Wade treat Grandpa. Don't cause trouble." "I'm causing trouble?" Honor shot back angrily. "You're okay with just handing our grandfather's life over to him? I'm not that reckless. Are you trying to kill him?" Warnia's voice was ice cold. "I believe in Mr. Wade's abilities. Let him do his work. I will take full responsibility if anything goes wrong." "You'll take responsibility? That's bullshit." At that moment, Charlie didn't even look up. The silver needle in his hand was a blur of motion. With a flick of his wrist, he pierced several pressure points, including the solar plexus point, and others to improve circulation and channel vital energy. Then, he sent a small amount of spiritual energy into Cedric's body through the tip of the needle. The young woman saw Charlie daring to perform acupuncture on Cedric, and her face flushed with anger. She stepped forward to stop him. "Hey, you! Stop right now! If something happens, you'll be held responsible." Just then, Tristan, who was standing beside her, grabbed her arm. "Hold on," he said in a deep voice. "Don't disturb him." The young woman said anxiously, "Grandfather, he's just poking him randomly. He's going to hurt him." Tristan said sternly, "Fiona, look carefully at his technique." Hearing her grandfather's command, the young woman had no choice but to turn her gaze to Charlie's hands.